Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so I feel ridiculous, but I just recently became more aware of you. I was listening to a podcast that Oprah does, Super Soul Sunday, and it was one of the ones that you spoke at, and it was unbelievable. It was so incredible, and I said I need to meet her. I don't know why we haven't met before. So
thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
You know, I was only able to do that work because of what you've done in this space. You know, living authentically, living your truth, choosing to take the risks that you took by living your truth authentically, publicly, really laid the groundwork for so many of us LGBT youth that were watching at that time, not knowing that we needed that. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for what you're doing. I think, look, we're in a time where people are still confused about even just gay and lesbian people, and then you add, you know, trans people, and they're like, what does that mean? I don't know how to deal with that. And so when you say you started, because a lot of it, if you wait too long, obviously you're very feminine, very female, and that is part of like starting early transitioning, right? With hormones and stuff like that. And people who don't start earlier, it's a lot harder, right?
Yeah, there's so many different journeys, right? Like when you think about it, for me, I was so lucky that I grew up in a place and in a time period where access to that medicine was there, that, you know, I also grew up in an environment where the Native Hawaiian culture has a space to designate for people who are gender nonconforming, who are not necessarily male or female, who may be in the middle, figuring things out a little bit. And so growing up with that consciousness, growing up with that access enabled me to, you know, help before puberty kicked in for me. But there's so many different journeys. There's many trans people who don't want to have, you know, any kind of surgeries or medical access in that way, and some who do, like myself.
So what would you say, because I think, you know, we're hearing about it more and more now, which I think is a really positive thing, because, you know, people need to be seen, and we need for people, especially parents out there that are maybe dealing with this with their kids. A lot of kids, like you said, you knew when you were really young. What if you're a parent and your kid is acting the opposite sex, and you're thinking, okay, maybe they're just going through a phase, or maybe they're just gay, but the kid is saying, no, I really don't feel. I mean, that's a tough place for a parent to be. What do you say to that?
I think the best thing any parent can do is just to listen and to nod. You don't have to think about the 10 steps ahead. Just think about this moment when your kid is coming to you and they've been thinking about this for years, and finally they feel safe enough to come to someone that's supposed to meet them with nurturing and care and affirmation. That's all you need at that time. You'll figure out the steps as you go. My mom was very much, she was like, okay, you know, but at the same time, she also was like, okay, we'll figure it out. Okay, we'll go to the next step. And so I think that the best thing young people could get in a world in which they get the head shaken at them, to get a nod.
Yeah.
And to just listen. And to also go to, you know, resources like PFLAG, you know, that can help you answer those questions with other parents who are going through that, to read some books that are out there in the world, you know, but in that space, your child just really needs you to be open-armed with them.
Yeah, I think it's just, and the reason I ask this, because I think it's a really hard thing for parents right now that are seeing that and hearing more and more kids are going through that. And I think parents are, you know, first of all, a lot of parents are loving their kids conditionally, and they want them to be what they envision them to be. And it's like not supposed to be that. They're supposed to be their own, you know, little soul. But that's a tough place for parents to be. But so you're the first in your family to go to college. And you're this brilliant writer, but you had never worked in television, and suddenly Ryan Murphy calls you and says he wants you to write, produce, and direct on television. And you said, okay.
It was the strangest interview to ever have. First of all, I was on the set of the assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story, and it was a nightclub scene. I just remember there was like a disco ball in the air and like drag queens all over the place and shirtless, oiled up men. And I was like, this is the strangest interview that I've ever been on. But I was like, it's Hollywood. So I came in and he hired me on the spot, and it really just changed my life because I grew up watching television. I'm one of 5 kids, the middle of 5. My mom was a single working mom. The TV was a babysitter, like many people probably watching right now. And so to be able to finally create reflections of myself and my community, reflections and mirrors that I didn't have growing up, has been so deeply affirming and so gratifying for me.
Yeah.
And so I just love being able to work on Pose and to tell these stories about these women and these people existing at that time period.
Yeah, it's called Pose, and it's amazing that this is your first journey into this, and you've written 2 books if you're interested in all, and just listen to the podcast that Oprah did also with Janet. It's your books, your story. There's so much to your story. We don't have time for all of it, but it's just, you're incredible, and I think we need more people just, you know, on television and everywhere just representing all of us, because we're all different, and you know, you're brilliant. So thank you for being
Ella.
here. It's called Pose. It returns June 11th at 10 on FX. We'll be right back.